everybody, welcome again to the session. I mean, both Mr. Arvind and Mr. Babu were very kind enough to welcome me. So, welcome you all to the session today. Uh, I am Pallavi Banerjee, as Sir introduced me. I work with a company called Lloyd's Register Quality Assurance, LRQA, and I handle the marketing for India and Southeast Asia. So, today we are going to talk about the emerging challenges in management due to this whole COVID 19 pandemic. So, the objective of this session is mainly that we should cover all the areas of management that have been hugely impacted by the pandemic and try and see what are the challenges that organizations or corporates are facing and how they are trying to deal with these challenges. So the key functions that I would say are highly affected by the pandemic are HR or human resources, the IT infrastructure and the real estate part of the corporates, marketing and sales, supply chain, training and upskilling. Now we'll have a look at all five of them one by one. So I'll first start with human resources because when the pandemic hit, uh, HR was, I would say, the worst hit function because HR was responsible for making sure that employees are working from home. HR was responsible to make sure that employees have everything they need to be able to be working from home, their physical health, their mental health, because a lot of companies, a lot of employees were really going through a very hard time as far as mental health is concerned. Also, physical health. So, when we go to an office, we have a proper desk, we have a proper chair. Those are very, very minor things, but if you remove that from the equation, you have a very difficult situation where you are at home, say expensive cities like Mumbai, Chennai. Not everybody can afford a 2 BHK or a 3 BHK. So suppose an employee is living with his family in a 1 BHK, and now suddenly he has been told that you have to work from home indefinitely. He has a kid, he has his family, his parents. Where does he work? Where does he go with a, he has to first buy a table, chair, then he has to take care that he is not disturbed for most of the time. So that was a major challenge for a lot of employees, especially for call center operations, especially for data centric operations, where they had huge number of employees. So their physical health started deteriorating because employees would sit on the bed and try to work, so they started getting all these back issues. Their mental health started getting affected because they were trying to work from home. They did not have any kind of physical interaction with anybody. Their kid is screaming at one end, their spouse is screaming at the other end. So it was a major mental health issue. And who needs to deal with all this? The HR needs to deal with all this. So the human resources function or the HR had this one major challenge when the pandemic started, that how do they ensure that the physical and mental health of all employees is in good condition. So they actually had to tie up with a lot of psychologists. They had to tie up with a lot of corporates or companies that were giving psychologist services. They had to have a lot of corporate sessions online, all webinar sessions, but they had to do a lot of counseling for all the employees. Second was contingency plan for critical roles. Now, a lot of critical roles were not allowed before the pandemic. A lot of IT companies, the client facing roles, they are not allowed to work from home because of certain data restrictions, because of certain reservations from the client side that what will happen to our data. So, these critical roles who could not work from home, what do they do now? The governments were not allowing people to go to offices, but the work obviously had to be done. So the HR had to come up with contingency plans for these critical roles. How do they ensure that only the most critical employees are able to come to office? Uh, they had to speak to companies, to clients, where they could manage that. Okay, suppose my employee comes to office only on 2 days and can work from home for the rest because there are government regulations. So they had to do all these permutations and combinations for a lot of such client critical roles. Then flexible work arrangements and increase in remote workforce. Now with a lot of companies these days are saying that you can work remotely for as long as you want. Now when a company says that, it increases a lot of pressure on the HR. because it creates a very big divide between an employee who is ready to come to office and an employee who does not want to come to office because maybe he is at his native place. So if I give an example, say an employee is sitting in Chennai and he's saying, okay, I can come to office twice a week, if not every day. I can come to office, or I want to come to office twice a week. And there's another employee who is sitting in some village in Tamil Nadu because his house, his native place is that village in Tamil Nadu, and he's saying that I'm happy to be working from here and I will work remote. So the first thing which comes into play is it is unfair for the employee in Chennai to be getting the same salary as the employee who's sitting in his native place, because your HRA obviously is not the same. Your allowances are not the same. So that had a lot of increase in work for the HR, because for the company leadership it was easy to just announce remote workforce, but that just meant that the HR had a lot of extra work to do. Yeah. Then rise of contract workforce. Now, with the pandemic, you must have heard about this. Millennials are going more for freelancing. They want to do more contract work. So this pandemic kind of pushed it to the hilt that a lot of young workforce now, they say that we don't want a commitment of full-time work. We just want to work as a contract worker because that gives me flexibility. I can work for the months I want to work, and for the months I don't want to work, I don't work. I can only work assignments which are remote, so I can be in my native place. I don't have to move to a Mumbai. I don't have to move to a Bangalore. I can just stay wherever my native village is, wherever my native town is, and I will work on contract for people who can give me online work or digital work. Then expanded employer role as a social safety net. So this is very important. Somewhere in between mid range of the pandemic, when we were 4 5 months into the pandemic, a lot of talk started happening how companies are not protecting their employees enough from the pandemic, how companies are not caring more. So again, this role fell in the HR's lap, that they had to ensure that the employer was acting as a social safety net. So the companies who had medical cover, medical insurance, they had to increase the insured value. So suppose my employee today is insured for 1 lakh, the HR actually had to renegotiate with the insurers, and the say the cover was increased to 5 lakhs. So that's just one example of how the employer was now acting as a social safety net in case of something happened. So medical insurances were renegotiated, life insurances were renegotiated. So a lot of things happened due to this pandemic, which I believe will leave a permanent impact now. Then increase in demand for IT workforce and increased attrition and salary hikes. This last point is, I believe, a very, or rather the most interesting point, in the sense that a lot or majority of the companies, majority of the employees with the pandemic, they saw some salary cuts. The government sector had salary cuts. The private sector had for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, there were salary cuts. But the IT force, on the other hand, there was a sudden huge demand for IT workforce, because everybody wanted their systems to move on the clouds. So with that, with the increase in demand, the attrition rate went up, because companies who did not have the required IT skills, IT workforce, they were paying more and more to get those talents. Because of that, the attrition went up, and the salaries just kept getting up and up and up. And a recent research by LinkedIn actually suggests that pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, the salaries, the average salary of an IT workforce has increased by anything from 50% to 100%. So in these 1.5 years for the IT workforce, their salaries have gone up by 50 to 100%, which is a pain point for the HR, of course. Now, IT infrastructure and real estate. This was another major impact of the pandemic, that all the office building leases were renegotiated because people were not really using as much office space. So suppose earlier I was using an office space which could house 1,000 employees. Now I just need an office space which can house 500 employees, because I've told my employees, like most of the companies, that you come only twice a week or say only thrice a week. So there's this alternating arrangement. So because there's this alternating arrangement, earlier companies were leaving open spaces for social distancing and all that, but now they're saying that okay, things are settling down and I don't need that much space, so why should I pay lease? So the building leases are being renegotiated. The employees are working in shifts. uh, the shifts has only increased with the pandemic. Companies have realized that I am saving so much on the building leases, so why not? Then increase in the need of cloud infrastructure and IT support. So earlier there were a lot of companies that were still depending on physical servers, physical IT infrastructure. But the pandemic forced everybody, like literally forced them to move from the physical infrastructure to the cloud infrastructure. Um, so there was a lot of increase in the investment needed for the cloud infrastructure and IT support. Investment in laptops and internet. So obviously when people started working from home, not everybody had systems in their houses, so the company had to invest in laptops because they couldn't ship all the heavy desktops and mouse and keyboard to the employee homes all the time. So they had to invest in laptops for the employees to keep working, and for the internet connections, of course. And lease and property rates decreased for commercial space. Now, with this pandemic, a lot of commercial space had to decrease their rates in terms of the lease and the rentals, because they saw that companies are, as I said, say 1,000 to 500. So companies are reducing the use. So when it's simple demand and supply, when the supply is more and demand is less, the rates will come down. Now, marketing and sales. So, rise of social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, Insta, Facebook, whatever you can think of as a preferred marketing channel. So, for me, as a marketer, when the pandemic hit, my biggest problem was how do I connect with my clients, because I am from a B2B marketing, business to business marketing. So we used to connect with clients via all these corporate events, via these physical conferences that we used to go to. Now, when the pandemic hit, everything just stopped. Even our salespeople could not go to meet their clients, and especially in a country like India and the whole of Asia for that matter, people are very relationship oriented when it comes to selling it, especially high end selling or high value selling. So if you're investing a lakh, 2 lakh, 5 lakhs in a product, then you would want to see that person's face, you want to meet that person and then pay that check. So that was a major challenge for us as sales and marketing professionals, that how do we connect with our prospective customers now. So that is when LinkedIn, Twitter, those started emerging like really big players. For business to business marketing, LinkedIn has, I mean, I would have to check the revenue, but I'm sure they've made at least a tons, billions and billions of dollars in revenue in the last 1 year, only from business to business marketing, because LinkedIn has emerged as the single largest king or the emperor of this business to business marketing. For that matter, business to customer marketing, B2C, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, they are also making hay, because people are not able to meet their customers. They are spending all their marketing budget on ads on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. So most of the selling, most of the marketing is now happening online. Sales, as I said, sales are now getting upskilled in online selling, because most salespeople were used to going and meeting the client, having a small corporate event, or going and meeting the client over lunch, over dinner, just meeting the client in his office. In short, meeting the client. But now that stopped. A lot of people are still skeptical to meet salespeople. So sales are now getting upskilled. They have to learn a lot of new skills to on sell online. The rise of professional social networks like Clubhouse. So I don't know how many of you have heard about, but there's this new social network in town, which is called Clubhouse. Now, Clubhouse is somewhat like a competition to LinkedIn. It hasn't picked up as much, but I think it has good potential for being a very strong competition for LinkedIn. Clubhouse is where you form clubs, or you form groups of like-minded people, and then that is being used as a channel. First, to increase your social network, and gradually, obviously, to sell, to market your products. Supply chain. Now, MNC is moving to a multi-country supplier model. All of us know that most of the developed countries had started using China as a supplier, because obviously Chinese stuff is very cheap. But when the pandemic hit, the borders were shut, not for days, not for months, for more than a year, and now almost 2 years. So borders were shut. Companies had actually not allowed any Chinese or mostly Asian people or fleet to come into their land. So that's when MNCs had to uh, really seriously consider a multi-country supplier model. That okay, say China is cheap for me, so I keep having some percentage, or say 50% of my manufacturing in China, but say I move 50% of my manufacturing to Canada or Europe or US. Why? Because Canada, Europe, and US, these are more closer, and these are well connected. So if something happens like this in future, even if my 50% supply chain is affected, which is the Chinese supply chain, I would have something to keep my business going from the Canada or the Europe or the US supply chain. So even though they are expensive, companies are now moving some of their manufacturing to these little more expensive countries, to make sure that if something like this happens, business continuity does not suffer. Now, AI and ML, artificial intelligence and machine learning, are being embraced in a big way in manufacturing facilities. So, manufacturing facilities, industries, warehouses, all these are heavily manpower dependent. Again, when the pandemic hit and people were not allowed to go to offices and work from their manufacturing facilities or warehouses, for companies with huge businesses it was a very, very big problem, because people can work from home who can work from home, but a manufacturing facility employee cannot work from home. He has to go to his factory, he has to go to the facility. But if the government regulations are not allowing, then how does the work progress? So in companies have started investing hugely in artificial intelligence and machine learning, so that if something like this happens, they can actually man a whole factory with a handful employees. So if earlier I needed 500 employees to man my factory, now in a worst case scenario, my entire factory should be able to be manned with 5 employees. So that's the kind of investment companies are doing in their supply chain technology. Now, with the increase in online purchases by consumers, stronger delivery models emerged. So, this is something that we all must have experienced, that with the pandemic, even earlier we were buying from Flipkart and Amazon, but our purchases have gone up. We are now doing Big Basket, Grofers, Flipkart, Amazon, anything and everything online, Zomato, and whatever we can think of. So with the online purchase, whatever be it food, be it grocery, be it clothes, be it technology, with the online purchase going up by exponential percentages, the delivery model had to emerge really strong, because earlier the delivery model was not as strong because the percentage of people shopping online was not as much. But this pandemic changed the game completely. Even people who did not even have the apps on their phone, they actually took the effort that okay, I will, it's not safe, so I will not go and shop offline, I'll order stuff online. So the companies invested a lot in the delivery models. Earlier, if they had 10 delivery people, now they had 1,000 delivery people in each city. Yeah. And the last point is training and upskilling. Now, one major trend that has emerged from the pandemic is the need for upskilling. As I'm talking through all the points, one thing that clearly emerges is post pandemic, people have realized that whatever I've learned in, say, 10 years back in my graduation is not as relevant today. And I will have to upskill myself if I have to survive in this world. Because a very simple thing, if the world is going towards remote workforce, so the companies now have an option to choose from a global workforce. So if I'm a company who's situated in Chennai, I am not bound by the workforce I have in Chennai. I can actually choose a workforce for this one role from anywhere in India, from anywhere in the world. That means that suppose you as a candidate are vying for that role, you are being compared to at least a billion people who are for who are eligible for that same set of role in that company or in any other company. So if you do not upskill yourself, if you say that okay, I've done my graduation 10 years back and I'm all good, I'm all set, then you are actually way behind in the race because there's somebody else in some other part of the country who has upskilled himself, who has done a PG, who has done a certification course, and who is now ahead of you. So this pandemic made people realize that I need to keep upskilling myself so as to keep constant competition with this global workforce that has now come up. Technology and business management based courses are the top sellers. Now, before this session started, we were just discussing, Sir and I were talking how SRM is offering technology and business management courses. Funnily enough, these two are the best selling courses across the globe, not only in India, across the globe, because people have realized these two are the top skills that you need to success for success in any role. Even if you are an HR and you do not know technology well, you will not be able to succeed in your role. Even if you are a supply chain professional and you do not have a business management qualification, then you do not know how to manage your processes effectively. I will not say you do not know, but even if you know, you do not have a degree to prove, you do not have a certificate to prove that I have it. So people have started investing a lot in technology and business management courses, and online education is increasing leaps and bounds. So training and upskilling is the one industry which the pandemic has changed completely. So I think with this, I have covered all the areas that we started. I will go back. Yeah. So the five areas that we looked at when I started was human resources, IT infrastructure, marketing and sales, supply chain training, and upskilling. So with this, I've covered all the areas. I have been talking for quite some time now. So please tell me if you have any questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And if there are any questions, please unmute yourself and let me know, and I can answer the question. And if there are no questions, then we can conclude the session.
Dear learners, if you have any questions or if you have any clarification, we can ask to our expert.
Please, I mean, it can be related to the presentation or it can be related to any other topic that pandemic wise you feel should have been in the presentation. Uh,
Good evening, ma'am. I'm Jayalakshmi Satish. So I have a question. How digital marketing is gonna play a role in the upcoming future, ma'am?
Okay. Good evening, Jayalakshmi. So, as I said, in the upcoming future, technology and management, these two are the main selling courses or the main selling skills. And digital marketing covers both. It has technology and it has management. So, if you're planning for a career in marketing, then you do not have a choice but digital marketing. So marketing obviously is a vast range, and digital marketing is a very small part of it. But in the current scenario, if you do not understand digital marketing well, then you will not be able to do any job in marketing elsewhere, because everything is implemented via the digital channel. So if you're planning a career in marketing, then digital marketing is the way to go, because all companies are just moving towards it at a very, very high rate. I mean, does it answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, very good evening, ma'am. This is Mohan here.
Hi, good evening, Mohan. Tell me.
Just wanted to know, people who are looking for a career shift post this pandemic, how can may I know what are all the things they need to do or the courses they need to do for a career shift? What do you
Okay.
suggest?
That's a very interesting question, and certainly a question which needs more time, Mohan, but I'll try to answer. So if you're
Yeah, thank you so
planning,
much.
if you're planning for a career shift, the first thing is you will need to, and this answer varies for everybody. So I will not be able to give you a customized answer right now. If you want, we can connect later offline. You will need to first identify what your strengths are, because if you want a career shift, then obviously you are in a career that you don't like, so you would not want that you move to a career which again you won't like. So you first identify your strengths, what are you good at. Then once you've done that, you see what are your available options, available career choices in that. So suppose you've identified that you are very good at speaking to people, just an example. So if you're very good at speaking with people, if you're very good with people, your people skills are amazing, then you probably have two three options here. You can do an HR, you can do a marketing, you can do sales. So then the next step is, as you said, which will be most fruitful for you. So you try and find out, you speak to your professors. One is what you think about yourself, and one is your what other people think about you, what your family thinks, what your friends think, what your professors think about you. And that will give you an idea about where, in which career will you be good at. There are a lot of tools available in the management arena which will help you decide which is that one area that you are really good at. And once you know that one area you're really good at, then you can choose your career option.
Yeah, yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And just to, so I'm not serious very here, but just to add to Mohan your question, the easiest way to change your career is to do a PG. If you've not done a PG, you can do a PG in whatever course you want. The easiest option will be to do a MBA, because so I won't say that's the easiest. You do have to study a lot for an MBA, but
Yeah, true, true.
but the easiest way to change your career is doing an MBA, because after you do an MBA, then you get to do, you get to decide whatever you want to do, and people will not really be focused on what you have done in your graduation.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
yeah, I have another question, ma'am. Is a digital marketer need a MBA degree in marketing?
That's a very interesting question, Jayalakshmi. I would say no. A digital marketer does not need an MBA degree in marketing. Usually, digital marketing courses should suffice, but at the same time, if you want a career in digital marketing, you should you should do an MBA in marketing, because initial days, for the first 1 year, 2 years, even 3 years, people may not need that MBA degree from you. But you will realize that as you're moving up the ladder, as you're moving up in your career, that as I said, you're competing against so many other people who have an MBA degree, and you don't have an MBA degree. And there, more often than not, you will be better than these people. But then because they have a degree, they will always be up on the HR list because of their degree. Like it or not, degrees are still very important.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much,
much, ma'am.
everybody.
Have a nice day.
You too. All of you have a great evening. Bye bye.